All right, here we go, scholars. Mr. Byrne here. And today, welcome to Digital Communications. This is a part of Module 1, Photography. And today we're going to be discussing the elements of art. Now, the elements of art are super important to what we do in here because we're going to be producing all types of publications and media content for this class, and specifically the yearbook and the Miniature Tribune and some other publications such as like In Media Res, the art book, and things like that. And as we're putting together these things, we're going to be putting together spreads, and we're going to be putting a lot of photographs into our works. So we need to learn how to create stunning and beautiful designs on our spreads, but also within our photographs. So specifically, this conversation is going to be geared a little bit towards the photograph side. But these elements of art, they are pretty much for all art, all around you. And one of the main goals of this conversation is to maybe enhance how you look at your world a little bit. Maybe you'll notice things a little differently. All right, so we're going to look at two images here. We have two images of a beach. This is the first one. As you can see, white sand, a little bit of a pier going on there. Got we got lifeguard tower there. And then we have a picture of this beach. Again, white sands, very similar composition where the beach is kind of right here in the middle. And we got about 50% sky, 50% beach in both of these images. But which one would you say is better? I would argue that the second one here, this one, is actually better because it has more, or actually better use of the elements of art. And we can see definitely more saturated colors in here and just a little better composition than this one. This one's a little more, I don't know about you, but I'd like to visit this beach over the other one. So this is kind of what we're trying to do. This is what I would describe as taking a picture. Yeah, I was at the beach. This is what it looked like. Or making a picture. And we're actually making your image with intention. And that's the big thing here, folks. You really want to learn about the intention part of things. All right. So why is the second one better? It's because it has those elements of arts in there. All right. So our learning target is to explore what makes an image good. Air quotation marks there. By the end of class, I will have a better understanding of what makes art beautiful. And then we're going to take some notes and just kind of follow along. And Ralph Hattersley said, we are making photographs to understand what our lives mean to us. Okay, so the elements of art, these are the building materials. Well, the principle of design, those are the tools in which we use to make art. But these are the basis. These are just the raw ingredients in which we create all art, all photographs. All right, so the elements of art, and you should have already watched the videos that go along with these, so you should have a general idea of what these are. Line, shape, value, form, space, texture, and color. And we're going to go over each of these and discuss them so we have a little bit better understanding. All right, line. The definition, an identifiable path created by a point moving in space. Usually starts with a dot. Lines can really have a lot of, there's lots of different types, from wavy all the way up to embattled. I like that. Density. But horizontal, vertical, diagonal, broken, zigzag, wavy, curve, spiral. And there's lots of ways. We have thick lines and thin lines and just all different ways to kind of look at lines. Lines convey meaning. They can be graceful or energetic or erratic. These are just great ways to describe how lines are used in pretty much any work of art that you're putting together. So look for lines in your world. This is one of the most powerful things that you can actually implement in your photograph. And when we get to composition, leading lines is a really great one to kind of instill in your images. So here we have a nice zigzag line. It kind of takes you through the image. The point of lines within photography most of the time is to direct your viewer's eye throughout the entire image. So this one takes us from our focal point here in the foreground all the way through this way and just kind of leads your eye a little bit. Here we have lines, so we have some nice contrast going on here. The focal element is obviously the little kitten there, but really strong lines. That's the dominant element art. So when I look at your photographs, this is kind of what we're looking for. You should see that Like, oh, I see lines in this photograph. This one has lots of different elements art, but definitely lines is the most dominant one. This one here, we see lines that lead you from the bottom of the image all the way up to the top through the vines, and we have line pattern in our bricks there as well. All right, here we have kind of organic lines in a wheat field. Just a lot of up and down lines, kind of monochromatic image here. But again, the lines are the dominant image or dominant element. Here we have a rake from some farming equipment, and you can see that again, the lines are the dominant image. So kind of get an idea. Here with some light trails, again, lines, dominant thing within the image. Here we have some thick lines. This is a flower. You can see a nice use of color there as well. Some star trails, lines going across the image, leading your eye. Kind of cool to look at. Here are the trees, create some really dominant lines. All right, next one, shape. Enclosed space, limited to 2 dimensions, length and width. So when you think of shape, think of 2D. So silhouettes make great shapes, some different types of shapes, geometric and freeform shapes. Also, organic is another way to describe shapes. There'll be a separate video on how to take silhouette images, so make sure you check that out. All right, here we have a shape of a firefighter. He's being backlit. And here we have Taylor Swift being backlit from her tour a couple years ago here in Phoenix. There I am, right up here, taking a photo. My wife actually took this one, silhouettes of the plants, the trees, and of me taking a photograph of the sunset. All right, so usually when we're talking about shapes, a lot of the times within photography, we're talking about silhouettes. That's the best way to do that. The other way is to look for those shapes within architecture and working with those lines a little bit. All right, value. The lightness or darkness of colors or tones. So there's 2 ways to describe value when we're talking about the elements art. The first one is contrasts. Whites and blacks within the same photograph. That's one way to create value. The other way to create value is to have, like we have a color wheel here, is to choose colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So if we have kind of a red and a blue here according to this color wheel, that would create contrast within your photograph. That would create value. So contrast and value, they go hand in hand, but opposite colors on the color wheel, we call that contrasting colors, is going to create value within your image. And when we get to color theory, we're going to talk a lot about value and the color in there. All right, so here we have blacks and whites. Again, the firefighter's here carrying out a body. It's a dummy. It's not real. This is from our practice exercise. This is actually my brother-in-law right there. Hi, Bryce. All right, here we have opposite colors on the color wheel, some red and some green, creating that value within the image. Generally, you want to surround the red with more green. You don't want to. You want to kind of have your cool colors be more abundant than your warm colors. It just creates a more pleasing image in the long run there. All right, form. So if a shape is 2D, a form is 3D. An enclosed volume limited to 3 dimensions, height, width, and depth. And so you can see here an example of how this is a shape. And now we had some toning here. It is now 3D. Okay, so here we have a picture of a barn. And if I was to take this image straight on, and I would have the shapes, it would be 2D, but because I shot it from a little bit of an angle here, we can see that it has the 3-dimensional look to it, and that's our main focal element there. Same thing here, if I would have shot this hay bale straight on, it would have been 2-dimensional. Great use of lines, but because I shot it a little bit from the side, it gives us that 3-dimensional look to it. Again, here, a little bit from the side, creates that 3D look to it. And of course, animals, any living things generally have that 3D look to them. There's a scorpion, camel spider, same thing. Elk. All right, space. Distance or areas around, between, or within components in a work of art. So the main thing here is the distance between the elements of art. So that could be focal elements, it could be different types of things within the image. So when we're looking at this one here, we're looking at the distance between what's in our foreground, which is this boat here, and what's in our background. You know, we have a sky in the background here, and the distance between them. The greater the space between the elements really kind of brings that home. So in this example here, we have the reeds in the foreground, sunset in the background, creating space within the image. Now, if these are really close to each other, yes, it's still going to have space, but it's not really the dominant thing within the image. Same thing here, foreground, middle ground, background. We have our toadstools here in our foreground, and then we have kind of the forest in the background there, creating space between the things within our image. All right, texture. Perceived surface quality. I call this the Dr. Phil of art. Oops, got a typo there, we'll fix that later. How does it feel? So in this example here, smooth, rough, hard, soft, woven, bumpy, lumpy, rigid, jagged, irregular. So we have kind of a creamy, silky kind of feel here, and here we kind of have a rough on the wood. So this is a picture of ice cream. So this could be described in lots of ways. You know, creamy. I don't know, how would you describe this one? Cool. Ice cream's kind of got that soft feel to it. Definitely doesn't look rough. Where on the other hand, this one looks a lot rougher. You can definitely see a lot of the texture and patina within this image here. Here we have really good use of lines as well, but again, I would argue that the dominant element of art within the image is the texture. And that's what we're looking for when I look at your images, and especially for what we're doing for the assignment for this project, is when I look at it, I should say, oh, the dominant element should jump off the page at me. All right, here, this is actually a statue, so just kind of got that rough, but yet that smooth, kind of aged feeling to it. Here we have another rough example, wood, splintery. So use those adjectives, those descriptive words when you're talking about these. Here we have the ruffles, you know, within the image, creating just a lot of texture within the image. Here we have some more weathered, kind of rough feeling. Okay, so we're talking about texture. We're talking about how does it feel. So when we're describing your images, again, this is a way to really increase your artistic language when you're talking about your photographs. I was really going for a type of rough feeling within this image. Again, this has other elements of art within it, you know, it definitely has some good use of lines within it, but the texture is really the thing that jumps off the page at me. All right, color. Produced when light striking an object is reflected back to the eye. That's the technical term for it. When we're talking about photography, you're talking about red, green, and blue. They make up all of the other colors, especially within Photoshop. It is an RGB scale, which we use for most of our design that we're going to be doing within the context of the class. And like we said, we talked about opposite colors earlier. We had an example of the red and the green. But when light hits a surface, it bounces back, and that's what tells us what color it is within our eyes. So we describe color in two different ways: cool colors and warm colors. We are going to get so in depth when we get to color theory about this information. But this is just kind of a basic, get you started on it. So when you're doing any image that is in color, has that element of art within it. So if it's not a black and white image, it has the element of art of color. Here's the thing you're trying to do though, is you're trying to be really intentional with how those colors are portrayed. Nature loves to do contrasting colors. If you look around you, you'll find it all over the place. One of my favorite examples is when I see a nice red flower with a lot of green leaves around it. It's this natural contrasting colors that looks really great. Nature really knew what it's doing to put together its color palette, and it is all over the place. You'll see a lot of oranges mixed with blues, and then they do this intentionally a lot with logo design. Think of all the sports teams. We got the Los Angeles Lakers with the purple and the yellow there, and the Chicago Bears with the orange and the blue. It's all around. You start looking, and you'll see it everywhere that you go. And it's also a really great design technique used not within your photographs, but also within all of your design spreads that you'll be making as well. All right, so here, this was taken in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, this is a waterfall, and you can kind of see a lot of green, and the red's kind of contrasting the color there. In this image here, we have the blue room with all of the orange goldfish contrasting colors. Here we just have a kind of a rainbow color effect within the oil drops. Aurora Borealis, the northern lights, the red, the green, another great example there. Lots of colors, we have a variety of colors in this image. Again, we kind of have the red mixed in a little of the green, maybe tilting towards the blue a little bit. And here we have kind of a really saturated balloons here with kind of a really unsaturated background, which really makes the balloons really pop off the page. That is called selective coloring. It's a technique we're going to learn in Photoshop, where you just have one dominant thing that's in color, or in this example, the balloons are in color and everything else kind of muted in the background. And it's a great way to really show your audience, look at this. I want you to look at this. This is the only thing in color really in the image, and it should jump off the page as this does here. Here, lots of color as well. So a variety of them. Here we go again with the red and the green. Christmas lights, some nice bokeh in there within our Christmas lights, which is kind of cool. Variety of colors. Little complementary colors here, colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So we got some green, some blue and some red. Okay, we're going to look at a couple more images, and we're going to kind of play a little game here. So what I want you to do is I'm going to show you the image, and I want you to try to determine what is the dominant element of art in each of these images. I'm going to pause after I pulled each image so you kind of take a look at it and see if you can get it right. So here we go. Okay. What is the dominant element of art within this image? Now I will preference this. I took all of these photographs that we're going to see here. So when I took these, I took these with the intention of the elements of art and really portraying them. So in this image, the element of art I was going for was texture. There was texture everywhere in the walls, in the foreground, middle ground, background, all different levels. This is a student example. And the dominant element of art is, Grace took this photo, she was trying to show color. Here's another student example. Shape. And shape, you see the nice shape of, organic shape of whatever this tree thing is. Here's another student example. This was taken on campus. You might recognize it. It's our track, and the lines are the dominant element of art. Shape. What do you think this one is? This one is space. So lots of space. Took this one. This one was value. All right, so here is your task. You're going to take a series of 7 images that demonstrate the 7 elements of art. So let's pop over to Google Classroom here. Let's see, here we go. So you should have already watched all of these videos. We're going to add this one at the bottom here, and there's a worksheet that I'd like you to do. And in this worksheet, you are going to kind of brainstorm some ideas on things. I want you to come up with 2 ideas of things you can take pictures of on campus that have lines. So the idea here is I want you to explore a little bit, but also have a little bit of intention with your photographs. So think about what are some things on campus that have really strong lines in them. So I'm going to eliminate the track as an option, since that was in the examples that we showed. But find things around campus that have lines, and then I want you to brainstorm 2 ideas. So we're going to want to see this graphic organizer filled out before you actually head out and take your pictures. but you're going to take an image that represents each of these, and then you're going to be submitting these into Google Classroom. So a couple things you're looking for within your photographs is they need to be sharp, which means in focus. They need to have some sort of focal element. Um, just a picture that has kind of a strong focal element, a subject essentially is what we're looking for there. And these images need to be freshly taken for this project. We don't want you scrolling through your camera roll and just pulling up a couple of images. So that's what you're going to be working on. If you have any questions, feel free to ask myself or Mrs. Brunk. We'd be happy to answer them for you. And go out and explore your world and make some beautiful images. All right, I can't wait to see what you turn in, scholars. Have a great day. Hit me up if you have any questions. Bye.